We're decorum. All right, call the meeting to order. And now we need to receive of the evidence.
The County Board Supervisors March 21st meeting notice and agenda was posted in the Government Center building in 2 places, posted on the county website on March 10th, 2023, and was published in a legal newspaper the week of March 13th, 2023. It was published on March 16th. In addition, on Friday, March 10th, 2023, at 4:32 p.m., the Office of the County Clerk distributed copies of such notice of meeting to supervisors and media via mail or
That is proper notice.
Okay, roll call, please.
Brad Olson,
Here.
Doug Rowdy,
Here.
Steve Wornall,
Here.
Ryan Wood.
Here.
Tracy LeBlanc. Here. Dan Ruck. Barbara McAfee,
Excused.
Sharon Kelly. Here. Kim O'Connell,
Here.
Amy Middleton, Jay Luke,
Here.
Denise Lallier-Prey. Here. Russ Arkand,
Here.
CJ Simmons,
Here.
and John Bonaprise.
Here.
All right, we have 13 out of 15 supervisors.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Need a motion on the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any?
Yep, I gotta take some off. So I'm gonna, so I would like to take number 6, we're gonna take C off. So that got pulled from there at the township level, so that's why that one's off. So that would be the only change that I have right now.
We'll move for approval with that note of 6C.
You're offering approval of the matters of adoption of the consent agenda, is that correct?
Oh,
No, just
we gotta
the
vote on the
approval of the
agenda
agenda,
first.
the whole
Oh, the
agenda. itself.
right,
That's missing, so I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
So with the amended matter, we need a motion on the adoption of the consent agenda.
I make a motion, we adopt the consent agenda.
With that one
With that
exception
change.
on C.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public comments. Anyone here to make a public comment? Hearing none. We'll keep moving. I want to address the proposed resolutions. The motion on them.
to approve resolution 1323,
That's on 23 has made a
the
motion.
carryover one, yep.
Need a second,
I'll second it.
seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Resolution B. Motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion made and seconded on 1423. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Resolution 1523.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 1523.
Motion made
I'll second it.
and seconded by Brad. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion 1723.
Motion to approve.
Been made by
That's-
Wendell,
I would second that motion.
seconded by Denise. All in, any discussion on that? Pretty self-explanatory. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Resolution 1823.
I so move for approval.
Johnny?
Correct.
Motion made.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Brad. Any discussion on the confusion straightening out? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify that they did go through committee. These packets went out before committee, so they were appropriately signed, but just not prior to publishing of the agenda.
Okay. That's good. Okay, now we're to some presentations of Sterling ATV, UTV. and Bob?
Good evening, everyone.
Evening, Bob.
Thank you, Jacob. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Well, thank you. This is a opportunity to share one of our projects. I'd like to at least start out with recognizing the Environmental Services Committee. They have looked at this design, the new ATV UTV intensive park in the town of Sterling, and vetted it through several presentations. This is actually one of 13 projects outlined in the Comprehensive Trail Network Plan. If you all remember, roughly 2 years ago, PTAG, Parks Trails
Parks and Trails Advisory Group.
Thank you, sir. Parks and Trails Advisory Group. That's a mouthful. Was a special committee appointed to develop and recommend projects to increase or improve our recreational assets throughout the county. And this project was actually deemed a high priority project. What I mean by that is PTAG evaluated all of the ideas through a long decision matrix, and this was deemed a high priority. And really the goal was to serve the needs of ATV riders throughout the county, to provide another opportunity for some different or difficult terrain, but most importantly, to accommodate all abilities. As I go on forward through the presentation, you'll see there's other skill set or skill level loops in the final design. So we're at 100% design. It includes a variety of challenge courses with obstacles, and also, like I mentioned earlier, a beginner loop for children. This facility is going to be entirely on county forest land. The timeline for completion is anywhere between 1 to 3 years. So we've been on task, and I've been assured by Mo. By the way, Mo's not here, so I'm presenting some of this on behalf of him, but he has assured me that they are scheduling the clearing and grubbing of this 60 acres as early as the fall of 2023. Right now, we're applying for a number of different DNR trail development grants to subsidize the project. And so we're moving forward in regards to that. Jacob, slide 2. Real quick, the project description, it's in the town of Sterling. It's right off Evergreen Avenue or south of Evergreen Avenue. It's roughly 1.1 miles west of the current ATV, UTV campground, as well as that terminus for the Sterling Loop, the 5.3 mile Sterling Loop. And our goal is ultimately to connect that Sterling Loop to the southeast corner of the intensive park as well. This conceptually was modeled after a similar ATV, UTV intensive park down in Syracuse, Wisconsin. That's south of Wisconsin Rapids. They have a 600-acre ATV, UTV park down there. And This project was designed by a consultant called SEH, and that was one of their first deliverables. Staff and SEH toured the Syracuse facility just to get some ideas of best practices and what type of amenities will work. So with that, another deliverable from SEH in their scope of work was to collect public input, and they did do that. Next slide. It's a really simple online survey instrument that SEH used, and we sent it out to recreational users. Not a huge response rate, but roughly 69 people responded online. And they ranked this particular question, they ranked the desired amenities. And number one was obstacles or trails for all skill levels. And so that's something that we really focused on and made sure was incorporated in the 100% design. Other amenities that were desired were obstacles, a sand pit, a challenge course, big turns, etc. So not only did SEH incorporate staff, PTAG's input in regards to what this intensive park should look like, but they also collected input from the broader community. Next slide. So here's the results of the final design. Again, like I mentioned, it's roughly 60-acre footprint. What we're doing is we're creating roughly 3 new miles of trails for ATVers. The first trail, we got a 1/2 mile or 0.5 mile of a 2-way trail. Now, that trail is on the eastern side, and I'll show you a map shortly. But basically, that provides access in and out of the park, as well as access to all the trails within the property. The next one is a 0.6 mile beginner's course, and that's on the north side, easy access off Evergreen. It has some rolling humps and some tabletop features. We also have a 0.6 mile challenge course. This is really the highlight of the course. There's obstacles throughout the course, and I'll show you what those are just to provide sort of another experience. Then there's the 1.25 riding track, or basically a thrill course. That also has some rolling humps, some small jumps, and some luge banking. And lastly is a 1.25 mile acre sand pit in the center. And that's something we learned on our site visit to Syracuse. That was very popular attraction. There's also going to be a perimeter fence circumnavigating the entire property. It's a woven wire fence, like a hog fence, and there's going to be 2 gates at the entrance on the north and the south. The town of Sterling owns a lot directly to the east, and they support a fence. The southern border borders a new red pine plantation, so our foresters are proponents of a fence, and on the western border, there's equestrian trails. So we want to segregate those 2 user groups. We also have developed a signage plan. We're going to have very robust signage. It includes directional signage, considering all the trails except for the 2-way trail for access. They're all 1-way. Next slide, please. So yeah, here's the site layout. The Sterling Loop, the 5.3 miles, is right down here. This is that town lot. This is one artery to the entrance of the park. Again, we have a perimeter fence. The top loop is the beginner course. And then this course, this is the sort of thrill track course. Again, it's run 1 way. Challenge course is in orange. This has a lot of obstacles in it. I'll show you some pictures of those. This is really going to be the highlight of the trail, or actually the park. Then again, the sand pit. Okay, yeah, here are some of the challenge course features. We have 8 total different obstacles. And again, this is what's really going to be the highlight of the park. Each of these features are 8 feet wide and 50 foot long. And then there's going to be a parallel 6 foot sort of corridor, a bypass lane in the event you don't want to go over the riprap or logs or whatnot. All these obstacles are really designed to sort of, I guess, work your machine, improve your handling skills. They're not for speed, obviously, but we have some angle logs here that are buried and anchored. We have riprap you can drive over. Again, you have that 6 foot bypass lane. And some tires. There's this log hill. There's a lot of grade, particularly in the southwest corner. So that's where we'll place those. Again, this is some sort of, I don't know, different offset railroad ties. Basically, that's mostly for just helping your machine articulate. Again, your large tires, there's your reach banking. And then these flat rock steps, this one is kind of optional. This is kind of expensive in terms of material costs. So we have them listed in the event we farm this out, and that has not been decided. We're looking at mostly doing the work in-house. But if we do farm it out, this might be an optional amenity in the bidding documents. Again, really robust signage, a perimeter fence. The gates will be 16 feet wide, double swing wide. So they're heavy duty gates. We're also installing 2 informational kiosks at the entry points, just for education for our users. And that is basically the design. There's a lot to do going forward. We have to determine what type of rules are going to be out there, the seasonality of it all. We have a good sense of what the liability is for the county. We have to work on promotion as well as determining what's allowable use and what's not. So there's a lot. We might have to do an internal sort of master plan for that facility. So with that said, is there any questions?
Let's say fast forward a number of years and it's super popular. Is there any ability to expand or?
Yes, there is to the south. There's also an adjacent lot to the west. However, we'd have to reroute the equestrian trails. Nice thing about this project is it's tied to the improvements we're making at the ATV UTV campground. As you know, we've made some improvements out there with improved parking, new bathroom, lighting, fire rings. That's going to be your terminus, because from there you can enter the new Jack Pine route or loop rather. You could go on the Sterling Loop or go down the road and access this intensive park. In the initial concept, we wanted a parking lot on that it was originally just 40 acres, but we decided that it would take away from the footprint. I have been assured, and Mo has brought it up, in the event it becomes popular, we could probably put in a parking lot with a pavilion in the northeast corner rather, right off Evergreen. So it's one of those things that, historically we don't build things as a county. We really don't. So this is all kind of new frontier for us all. So we'll just see what the demand looks like.
Yeah, I don't mean to skip forward on it. It's just curiosity.
Yeah, it's there's not a lot of them in the state. We did visit Barron's UTV Intensive Park. Enforcement's going to be an issue. There's going to be accidents out there. I can guarantee you that. So enforcement's going to be a challenge. So, yeah.
Can I ask a question about, are you saying that there's not going to be a parking lot? We talked about a parking lot. And one of the things we said, remember, was we had this big discussion, make sure there's not a loading ramp for them to fly off of, but now there's not a parking lot. Do they park in the Sterling Loop area and then ride over?
Yes. We've gone through this quite a bit with DSC, Environmental Services, and
Can't park down there and then ride the trail and then get to Contensa.
right, that was sort of a long discussion. That was a staff decision. Consensually, we thought that applying those resources for the bathroom, parking lot, pavilion to the staging area at the campground makes the most sense. We also didn't want to take away any acreage from the 60-acre footprint. So that's kind of where we're going. But again, like Mo has mentioned to the Environmental Services Committee, if the need arises, we can put in a parking lot.
I was just gonna bring that up because it was mentioned and you're discussing it quite well. But if you have grandkids and you go up to the loop parking lot, which isn't very big, they're gonna want to be parked up where they can go with the kids because the kids can't ride that mile, 10th, whatever you said.
Yeah.
I just think, and Mo and Rod were both sitting there and they admitted that we possibly need to look at that in the future. So I just think it's something that has to be looked at.
Yeah, subsequent to that meeting, which was last week, yeah, we sat down and are looking at some alternatives. That's the thing. It really depends on their workflow. More than likely, we're going to wind up building it. And it's sort of one of those design build ventures. So as we build it, you're probably going to see some changes. So for now, this is what the concept of the design is, with our specifications. So we have the ability now to go out and flag it and starting to clear it and then reevaluate.
Is there any staffing that goes with this? I mean, do you staff this with anyone when it's open, or is it just the users?
That's a great question. Syracuse, because of it's such a big recreational facility, it is staffed. However, they charge a fee as well. So we want to make sure we're indemnified for any liability. And I don't want to get into too much detail there, but there's already going to be maintenance, O&M costs because we're going to have to have someone go out there once a week to make sure those obstacles are still secured, make sure there isn't any vandalism. So, there's a cost to maintaining this facility. So in the event, it becomes so popular that, we do expand it or becomes a venture and it cash flows, then yeah, we could look at staffing it. But for now, it's just going to be like a park for folks to visit and recreate and hopefully be safe.
During daylight hours.
Yes, and we're looking at seasonality too, like late spring through the fall, and then no use locked up off limits over the winter.
How many units are there going to be out there? Like 50, 100, 500?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my mind around 60 acres.
Is there any kind of pass required or anything, or can anybody just go?
Yeah, unless we were to develop and adopt a county parks pass, I don't really see the ability to charge a fee. So those are all policy decisions down the road.
I remember the day that I needed to have a borrow pit to do the County Road End project. So we needed some topsoil, so we talked to a local farmer. We got a Bauer pit from there. And we went over the 1 acre that the county has for a ceiling because we didn't count the driveway. We meticulously measured it out so we would make sure we were under 1 acre. But we have to count the driveway. When I look at a project like this, and I think of all the topsoil you're going to subcut and make all these, the state and the DNR
Yep.
are okay with doing that.
We pulled a permit in January. So that's, we'll know more, but yes, we,
Will be acres of open cut. Any acres.
Do you clear cut the whole 60 acres?
no, it's just, I think they're gonna bury most of the stumps. So the one thing we have going for us, it is a sandy loam. It's tough to do any damage out there. But yeah, we applied for a PDS permit just in January. We also have a stormwater erosion control plan in place as well, Steve.
The stormwater permit is what you're talking about.
Anybody else have any questions? Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, land and water well testing.
Thank you very much. Jacob's getting things set up there. I'll introduce myself. My name is Eric Wycheck, County Conservationist with the Polk County Land and Water Resources Department, and really pleased to be here to be able to share some of our work with you. So thank you for the opportunity. So this is a watershed-wide well water testing program, and we have decided we needed to expand upon some of our well test data that was from the mid-90s. So the last comprehensive well water test was done mid-90s, late 90s, and seeing some concerns statewide surrounding groundwater. It was actually identified as a priority in our 2020-2029 Land and Water Resources Management Plan. And specifically, this is goal 2 within our Land and Water Management Plan. And, excuse me. I'll read off this specific goal. It's to protect and improve groundwater quality and quantity. And the objectives, there's 3 of them. To obtain pertinent groundwater data to determine current groundwater conditions, evaluate landscape susceptibility to groundwater impairment, and administer programs that protect groundwater. So our goal number 2 and 3 objectives with that. So our summary and methodology, this is a grant-funded program for the most part. We receive funding to the tune of $9,000 to $12,000 from the Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection annually. And thanks to the support of you all, and specifically our ESC committee, Polk County provided an additional $10,000 to be able to do a second watershed. So this has been very helpful to advance our goals in kind of a short amount of time. We're receiving support from our state groundwater specialist, Kevin Mazarik. He and his team from Stevens Point have been very helpful with the testing, obviously, but compiling the data and helping with some of the outreach and so forth, which I'll talk about later. This program includes well testing, free of charge for the participants, and outreach opportunities surrounding groundwater systems and well testing, and the implementation of practices that prevent groundwater contamination, such as cover crops, nutrient management. Our goal for each one of these watersheds, and the watersheds that we're working in are the hydrologic unit code 12, which is between probably 15,000 acres to about 40 or 50,000 acres. So I'll show you the scale of these projects here shortly, but within that area, we're hoping to get 100 new well tests in that area. It's an achievable goal for the most part. And we've been able to get that in a number of the watersheds that we worked in. So it first starts with a mailing, just introducing our program to the citizens within the watershed that we're working in, and asking them to volunteer for this program. We're typically sending out between 1,000 to 1,500 letters on average. And should they be interested in participating, we'll provide them guidance on how to take their well tests. And there's a webinar to conclude the program. And all of the well program participants have an opportunity to connect one-on-one with outreach specialists and staff within our department. This program has allowed us to create a dialogue with ag producers and citizens alike and what conservation practices protect groundwater quality. And with it, we're also able to provide an incentive payment for these practices to help offset some of the costs that ag producers have to implement cover crops or nutrient management and so forth. So here is kind of where we've been and where we're headed with the watersheds. This is illustration of our county and the watersheds in it. There's 42 of them at the hydrologic unit code 12. And so far, we have performed these well water studies in the Balsam Lake watershed in 2019, Wapagasset Lake in 2021, the Apple River flowage in 2022, and the Upper Trade River watershed in 2022. So those were some of our priority watersheds based on our land and water plan. We needed a way to prioritize our work, and we were able to prioritize the watersheds in which we work. So we're kind of going down that list of priority watersheds. For this year, we plan on moving in and offering this program in the Horse Creek watershed, which is down, oh, I guess we can't see that, down in the lower left-hand corner there. And also the Straight River watershed in the upper right-hand corner. In 2024, we'll move to Cedar Lake, Horse Creek, and the south branch of the Beaver Creek, which are right there. So the analysis package that we're doing with this program is the homeowners package. Is pretty comprehensive. It includes pH, conductivity, alkalinity, total hardness, nitrate, chloride, saturation index, coliform bacteria, and E. coli. Nitrate and chloride are important because they have a correlation with land use, okay? Nitrate, coliform bacteria, and more specifically E. coli are important because they have a public health risk, okay? So just touching on nitrate, if you're not familiar with some of the concerns surrounding high nitrates, the public health threshold for a well water test is 10 parts per million or milligrams per liter. So anything above that is concerning from a public health standpoint. Nitrate can cause thyroid concerns, thyroid disease. It's also been correlated with certain types of cancer, specifically colon cancer. We've all heard about blue baby syndrome and concerns surrounding nitrate there. And in some cases, even birth defects. So it's something that our citizens should be aware of. Now, bacteria, on the other hand, coliform bacteria is not necessarily harmful. It occurs commonly in nature. But coliform bacteria, a positive coliform bacteria hit in a test can indicate that there's pathways into the well water system for other pathogens. So it can also mean that there was some contamination in the testing process too. So whenever there's a positive hit for coliform bacteria, we recommend testing again. But regardless, anytime there's a positive hit for coliform bacteria, an E. coli test is run, okay? And E. coli is a bacteria that can make people quite sick. And it's found in the gut of mammals. And contamination typically is the result of human or animal waste. So here are, whoops, we're really moving now. So the project areas that we've worked in, so in 2022, we took on 2 watersheds thanks to the funding availability. And again, Upper Trade River watershed and the Apple River flowage watershed. And on the right side there, we've got maps on land use, but more specifically, I wanted to show the distribution of our samples. We really wanted a good broad distribution of sampling within these watersheds, and I think we got it. Apologize, it may be a little bit hard to see, but the pink dots represent our, our testing locations. So that was the Upper Trade. Here's well, that's Wapagasset now. We'll stay there. There's Apple River flowage. We did pretty good there. Next slide is Wapagasset. And I'm pleased with the sample distribution there. So I feel like we've gotten a good representative sample for the most part in the watersheds that we've worked in. All right, so here's kind of the findings in short. We've sampled a total of 344 samples in these 4 watersheds, and 54 of those samples came back as positive for coliform bacteria. That's almost 16%. It's important to note that the statewide average for samples coming in positive for coliform bacteria is between 17 and 23%. So I'm pleased to see that we're under the statewide average there. E. coli. Out of those samples, we've had 1 sample test positive for E. coli, and that's 0.3%. And the statewide average is 3%. So we're well under the statewide average there too. And that's a good thing. Nitrates. We had 25 samples out of that 354 that were above the public health threshold of 10 parts per million. That's 7.3%. And the statewide average is 10%. So again, happy to see that we're trending below the statewide average there. Now, it's important to know that, you know, we're not catching all of those wells out there, and there are pockets where we have elevated nitrates in the county, and it's important that the residents there know what their wells are testing. So I said before, with this, we really focus in on outreach and education. Okay, so for all the participants, we have a end of the year webinar where we bring in Kevin Masaryk from Stevens Point, and he talks about the groundwater cycle and helps interpret results, and is available for any questions. The groundwater protection practices, again, we're offering incentives for practices like cover crops that protect surface water quality and in a lot of cases, groundwater quality. So far to date, we have incentivized just shy of 630 acres of cover crops installed. And I added some more metrics here about the potential of that many acres of cover crops to protect our resources, okay? And this is done through some of the modeling programs that we use, but that 627 acres of cover crops prevented 1,054 pounds of nitrogen from leaving agricultural fields in one way or another. It prevented 294 pounds of phosphorus from leaving agricultural fields and prevented about 28, just over 28 tons of sediment from eroding past field boundaries and possibly entering surface waters. And 28 tons is about 2 dump trucks. So there's impacts there. Continued efforts. As a major deliverable of our land and water plan, and with the upcoming 5-year review of that plan, our department really hopes to keep the momentum in groundwater assessments. I'm happy to say that I feel really good about where we've gone, what we've done, and we have some good things to report for our land and water plan. Again, I mentioned we'll be heading into the Straight River watershed and the Cedar Lake Horse Creek watershed for 2023. And I'm working on another grant for the Department of, or grant to the Department of Ag for some more funding to carry out those studies in 2024. And as always, we'll continue to promote the implementation of best management practices that protect both surface and groundwater quality. So we've got some resources available. We have an interpretive guide for well water quality, and there's online webinars from the previous watershed studies we've done on our webpage. You can access those. All of the well tests that we take in this, in these studies go to Stevens Point, and they'll get put on the statewide groundwater data viewer. It's not specific to location of where those wells are, but they break it down to about quarter section. But it gives a good indication of all of the parameters that they're testing for, and where towns and counties and even narrowing that to sections are looking as far as the test results go. So you can visit that site if you would like to learn more. And I'm happy to say that with these programs, we're providing more data to Stevens Point from Polk County, where they hadn't been getting many tests. And I've got a address for the well construction report website, which is out there online too. So with that, I'd entertain any questions that you might have. And again, thank you for your support in this type of programming.
Anyone have any questions?
I got one.
Go ahead.
Where can we get the results of a specific area? Can we get that in your office, or?
Yep, it would be available, but what I would suggest is even better is to go to that well water viewer at Stevens Point. That's going to be more comprehensive and probably more representative.
Can we get a copy of the presentation?
Of course.
What's your strategic plan in terms of how many watersheds you aim to get here? Or do you have a plan on which ones you want to do, or is this just as many as you can get a grant to pay for?
No, we have a plan. It's laid out in our land and water plan. We've prioritized these watersheds, and our hope is to cover them all. It will take a number of years, but our plan is to cover them all. If we back up to that slide, you know, and we share watersheds with other counties. So some of that 42, there may be only, 600 acres of that watershed. So we'll cover that area with a neighboring watershed and make it worthwhile. So but that's our plan, is to cover them all.
Connie?
Do you have a trend as to well depth of like E. coli or I realize a lot of it is from the past, what's happened in the past. Just 5 months ago, I drilled a 345-foot well.
Sure.
And the tests are all about as good as you can get.
Sure. Yeah, that's a fine question. Well, we are not tracking that data at this time. I can tell you, generally speaking, the shallower the well, the more susceptible it is to contamination of any of those pathogens or nutrients that I discussed. As you get deeper, you're buffered more from those contaminated.
Did you have any outline as to some of those were like artesian wells or sand point wells or versus drilling? You got a number of, well, now this is so many of these were sand point, or you did those too, didn't you?
So yeah, we're not specific in the type of well we're targeting. You know, it's just we want voluntary participation, no matter.
You did identify which ones were sand point, or I imagine you did.
There are
Probably a
some
low number of them.
There are some questions on the well test data sheet that ask about well system type. Not everybody is informed about what type of well they have. So we're not getting the greatest of data there. But generally speaking, I'd say sand points are few compared to the drilled wells in our county.
Did you try and offer like the depths of the perimeter?
Say that again?
Did you try and get the people to offer the depth of their well?
Oh, sure. Yep, that would be in there too. But again, some of that data, they're not well informed on, so it just gives ranges.
Yeah.
So again, that's another added question on the well test data sheet is, you know, how deep is your well?
But that is extremely important.
It is. Yep, it is. And we can pull that data out as we get further into this to kind of tease out potentially some correlation between depth and contamination if we really needed to.
It particularly shows the nitrogen level according to depth usually.
Yep. And again, for nitrates, the shallower, the more susceptible.
Steve, did you have one?
Nope, that covered my question.
Okay.
Anybody else? Covers good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next item is the confirmation of appointments by county board chairman. The only ones that I have on my list are from fire wardens. And there's Wolf Creek and Sundown over in Lamb Falls. So I just want to confirm the appointment of these two fire wardens.
And we did that, Mr. Chair, in the consent agenda.
It was added, but I just want to confirm who they are.
Oh, okay.
Listed there. Okay,
Mr. Chair, was Steve Mueller was appointed to the Polk County Housing. Did we already?
I don't know. I don't do that. That would be from our Vince.
That's on number 11.
Yep, that's the next.
Okay.
Next three.
Excuse me, I hadn't read that.
And Vince is gone. So we have a stand-in county administrator. And Malia Malone, I believe, is taking that.
Yeah.
job.
So today I'm just acting as the deputy county administrator, which is why Mr. Loso is here as acting corp counsel for tonight's meeting. Vince had a funeral, which is why he was unable to be here, and just asked me to stand in. I believe the chair would entertain either a motion to adopt and confirm each one of these folks separately. I do have their application and the information about them if you wanted to know anything about them. But it is Steve Mueller for the Polk Housing Authority, and then Rosemary Crumry and Sheila Hansen for the ADRC.
So do you wish as a separate one for each one, or can I nominate them A, B, C?
You can do them all together or one at a time.
I move to approve the appointment of A, B, and C.
I'll second that.
As depicted on the agenda, the ADRC and Housing Authority.
Correct.
All of them, is that correct?
Correct.
It's been made and appointed and seconded. All that information, Shabana?
There is just one clarification. It's the ADRC Aging Advisory Committee. She did want me to make that note, and I will put it in the minutes as such.
All in favor?
Aye.
All same sign. The next item is County Board Chair Report. I really don't have much of anything that you're not surprised of, sense in boring you. But I do want to remind you that the project management meeting that everybody has been noted. I don't know how many he's put together or she's put together to get together and refresh our objectives for the future. Just want to remind you of that meeting that,
Next Monday, Tuesday.
well, they're separating them. Each individual is coming in and will be interviewed and give your opinions. So I just wanted to remind you of that. So I would recommend that you probably review your the old ones that we've done. Some have been moving along actually. So just kind of look up the old objectives and for the projects and see which ones we've been accomplishing and which ones are going good and which ones you might be which ones you might consider. But so take a look at them before you meet with our committee. Okay, the administrator's report, Malia is gonna take that over, I believe.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback on the chair's report. Vince did want to remind everybody about the priority setting exercise that's going to be coming up. He wanted to have everybody consider game-changing priorities. That was my best Vince impression. You know, obviously, there are mandated services, and then there's that tiny fringe of county levy dollars that can be targeted to certain things outside of those mandated services. So focusing on that, his intention is to have one-on-one interviews, I believe, with Bob and Don, with the supervisors to kind of solicit some of that information. Obviously, he's gonna rely a lot on Bob again, because he's so good at conducting that process. I don't know, Bob, if you wanted to say anything about that process.
Well, we have 100% enrollment. In other words, you all have scheduled time for us. Right, starting next Monday, for an hour, you'll be meeting with me and our partners with UW Extension. Don Wortham will be in the room as well. We have roughly 5 questions for you all. Just be an informal conversation. Chairman Luke brought up or emphasized the need to again, look at these existing priorities. We're going to talk about these, evaluate them. And then there's going to be an opportunity for you all to provide those big game-changing ideas or new priorities you think are important. I know Tammy did send out to your invitation within your invitation, a list, it's kind of a random list. You might have some questions about that, but those were carryover from when we did this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, forgive me. So those are just there to prompt, ideas or additional thoughts. However you want to, evaluate, emerging or existing issues, bring them to the table, and it'll just be an informal conversation in which we'll collect your perspective and then come back at a later meeting, synthesize, make sense of all the data, and then share with you what we've come up with, and hopefully you can endorse your new priorities going forward. So that's,
Do we have a meeting here Monday then? or-
Johnny, I think we got you scheduled Wednesday morning. I think you're,
Is that the 29th?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Do we bring our own stickers?
No dot democracy. We're gonna just have a conversation. No flip charts or-
Post-it
We got,
You missed that,
we got
don't
some
you?
new supervisors that probably don't understand that.
Oh, no, like a post-it note. What do
So
they
the
call it?
institutional comedy, right?
Right on. Totally.
We could always bring that back, if you guys really like that.
Like
That
popular
was
demand.
fun. So, okay, thank you, Bob.
One of the other things that we wanted to remind all the supervisors, what's been happening with mileage reimbursements for attending meetings. If you attend by Zoom, we assume you didn't drive anywhere, so you're not getting any mileage reimbursement. If you attend in person, the clerk's office and administration are assuming that you drove your vehicle here and then you get mileage reimbursement. If you ever have occasion to ride share with another supervisor, just make sure you make a note of that with the clerk that's attending that meeting so that you don't inappropriately get paid for mileage you didn't actually drive. So just a reminder or an update on that. They're just making an assumption if you're here that you drove yourself. An update on the Fair Society negotiations. We met last month with the Fair Society leadership and their attorney, Rory O'Sullivan. This was the second time that we kind of had a sit-down hash out meeting. At this point, procedurally, their attorney is going to be drafting something and getting that to me. Going to have a closed session likely in April, not with the Fair Society there, but just internally. Anyone who is interested in what's going on is encouraged to attend that meeting. All supervisors are allowed to sit in on closed sessions. They're not allowed to participate with the committee members, but they can sit in and listen if they have some curiosity about what's happening. If you want to know what happened at the last committee meeting, it's encouraged that anybody who wants to watch it, it was all in open session. You kind of can see for yourselves how those negotiations are going. So that's really it. There's nothing new to report, no new agreements, but everybody's, I think, trying to move forward.
In which committee there?
Pardon me?
In executive?
Executive, yeah, my apologies, executive committee. So the last executive committee would be one where you would get a really good, strong idea of where things are if you wanted to get yourselves up to speed. The next thing on the agenda, and I don't mean to just jump on the chair, but it is the CJCC update. And before you move to that topic, I just wanted to say that I wanted to thank Sheriff Walk for his service as president of the CJCC. He has stepped down. That's not because he wanted to, I'm sure. I think it was because the rules required someone to step down. And so now I'm the new president of the CJCC. I know Melissa Fisher as the CJCC coordinator has been doing an amazing job, and we're so lucky to have her. One of the things we've been talking about that I just wanted to bring up because it's near and dear to my heart is the discussions at the CJCC about the potential for a veterans court. We had meetings with folks that have the Veterans Court in Eau Claire and Chippewa County. They really only dealt with a small segment of the population based upon their limitations. at the last program committee, which is a subcommittee of the CJCC, we met with, what was his name? From Tom, who is a veteran himself and one of the founders of the CJCC in that region that has a regional model, and they serve veterans who have perhaps some violent charge in their past that would otherwise exclude them from participating in, say, treatment court because of the way the grant funding works. And they found some workarounds. And so that's really exciting to think that we might have that, because if your otherwise criminal behavior is linked to your mental illness as a result of your service, we need to treat you differently, right? And so I'm just very personally excited about it. I think the judges are excited about it. I know the CJCC is, and it probably can't work if it's just Polk County. It would have to be a regional model just because of the numbers. And so the next step is having the judges meet with this person who is very willing to lend a hand and help us, and so that we can maybe not make the mistakes early on that they did, and maybe get this running in a shorter amount of time. And I'm not talking, tomorrow, I'm talking, it'll take a couple of years, I'm sure, but at least we're on that road. And I just wanted to say that before you moved on to the next.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Are you finished your report?
I am all pow, as they say in Hawaii.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead with our CJCC report that's been totally announced.
So Jacob's pulling up the program numbers that show the jail population per month and what our numbers are in our CJCC programs. So for March numbers, that will keep changing with the jail as the month goes on. And for the CJCC, we don't count our numbers until the end of the month, just because there's fluctuation of people coming and going. But in February, we had, in our first time offender program, we had 3 participants. In our intoxicated driver intervention program, so that's people with OWI seconds and thirds, we had 9 participants. It's not on there right now, but our substance diversion program had 3 participants. And in treatment court, we had 9 participants for February. So some of the things that are going on with the CJCC, today we were able to tour a facility that the St. Croix tribe is setting up for an inpatient facility. And they believe they're going to open in June after touring today. I don't know for sure if that will happen, but we do have the St. Croix tribe working on an inpatient facility. It will be tribal preference to start, and then it will eventually, once it's established, open up to the public.
Is that the one in Turtle? Is that Turtle Lake? where they bought
Yes.
that property? I read about
Yes.
that.
Yep, and then one of our treatment providers that works with the treatment court, Whole Life Services, is also looking at opening a facility in Spooner for inpatient. So all of this is up and coming, but it would be great for Polk County to have closer resources for inpatient and even other intensive outpatient options. Right now, we just have 1 intensive outpatient in the county, which is Programs for Change in Amory, and there's usually quite a waiting list for that. So hopefully if it works out for these programs, then we'll be able to get people in faster for services that they need. So our current projects, Malia touched base on Veterans Court. We're also working on a victim offender program. And so that's a restorative justice model where a victim could meet with the offender in a case. We would start it out very small, where it might be like a theft or like a property crime. I know some other counties, once they get established, it could be even families impacted by homicide meeting with the offender, but we would be starting that small for now. And so our program committee is tackling that. Our full CJCC meeting last Thursday had speaker on sober housing in the area. And so we have actually 3 in Polk County, which is pretty impressive. We have Angel Hands, which is more of a family model for people that have at least 4 months sobriety. They have to have a driver's license, a job, so it's a little more rigid. The Butterfly House for women. And then we have the Onyx House for men in Polk County. And just this year for 2023 with our TAD funding that we receive for our programs, they awarded us funds to actually put people that are in some of our diversion or treatment court programs and help pay for their housing to go to sober living. So we've actually been able to send as a treatment response, individuals in treatment court to like the Onyx House. Before we couldn't keep them there if they didn't have the funds to pay for that. And now through the CJCC, we do have funds for that. And even in treatment court, when participants are doing poorly, just being able to send them to the Butterfly House or the Onyx Home and have them have that structure and sober support has been a night and day difference in our participants. And then lastly, we have 2 individuals in treatment court that are scheduled to graduate on Friday, April 14th. So normally that would be the first Friday of the month, but since the county is closed that day, we'll be having graduation. So court starts at 9 a.m. and we usually try to have the graduation celebration right at 10. Sometimes the treatment court graduations go late. So that will be in the community room in the Justice Center. And I know Chairman Warrendahl attended the last one in December, which the treatment court appreciates, and it's nice for participants to see county board members and just community members attend those and have that support. Does anyone have any questions?
Anyone? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Report. Announcements by supervisors. I'd be. Interesting. John, do you have one?
Yeah, I just want to bring everybody up to date. On Friday, I'll be attending the Health and Human Services Steering Committee in Wausau, no, in Wisconsin Rapids. And I have the agenda here. Last year, we have 5 of these. And last year, I think I introduced 9 resolutions from the 5 different committees. Sheriff Watt, you remember I introduced that resolution to fund the rural fire departments and the EMS per capita. Do you know if that happens to be in a committee yet, or? I know there was action taken on it, but then it goes to a committee. And that was one of our major ones from Polk County. I don't know if Tammy isn't here. I don't know if there's any resolutions. We've had a lot came through our human services, you know.
I'm not sure what she was working on. I know that there's always the constant thing of having. That's all.
Yeah, that's on our agenda. So if there is anything from Polk County, I will be introducing that. It starts at 10 o'clock Friday, and we do introduce resolutions that go to this is our steering committee that goes to the legislature. So I want to bring you up to date, and I'll let you know what all the 5 committees at our next May. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
yeah, we did that well.
Yeah, we did well.
I get to use.
I'll
the gavel.
second that.
Who's gonna make the motion?
I just did.
What, excuse me,
He wants to use the hammer.
Are we gonna talk about the zoning issue going on with Jared Smith at all, or Zeno Smith? That was taken off. It's done.
that was taken off. of the-
Okay, so that's completely done with.
That's, well,
It's at the township level.
back to the town level.
Okay, because they took it off of their agenda. We were at that meeting last week,
Okay,
and they're done with it.
The town declined their approval
Yes.
to rezone, so at that point, the
All
county
right,
can no longer
let's,
act on it.
we have a motion to
we got a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
Get it, Jay.
Yeah.